Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Welcome to the course on medical law. This lecture will be about neglected diseases and role of intellectual property rights. The concepts covered in this lecture are the problem of neglected diseases, market-centric innovations in pharma, the challenges of intellectual property based pharma innovation model, the potential solutions for this problem, and the need to look for alternatives. The keywords of this lecture are neglected diseases, orphan drug schemes, patent pools, open source model, alternatives to intellectual property. The IP based pharmaceutical research strategy has proven ineffective in expediting drug development for neglected diseases. The existence of a viable market is a determining factor for emphasis of pharmaceutical research. Consequently, there have been insufficient research and development efforts to address the medical needs of developing nations. The modern day pharmaceutical industry and their business model is dependent upon intellectual property rights. Intellectual property rights allows the industry to gain market monopoly for a limited period of time, through which they can recoup their investment and make profit. But there are certain diseases for which the market or the patients doesn't have the capacity to pay. So, in such models, the business model which is being followed by the modern pharmaceutical industry may not work. Let us see what are neglected diseases. The World Health Organization has identified 20 neglected tropical diseases as the primary focus for creating strategies to combat them. Neglected diseases are a wide range of tropical infections that are prevalent among impoverished people in developing countries. So, these diseases are prevalent only in the third world countries. Even though it is affecting majority of the world population, the patients are living in developing countries doesn't have the capacity to pay. These diseases primarily impact impoverished people and have a disproportionate impact on women and children. They arise due to diverse infections including viruses, bacteria, protozoa, helminths, parasitic worms, etc. The pharmaceutical sector shows minimum financial interest in these neglected diseases, which primarily impact the impoverished segments of the emerging nations. Let us see some examples of neglected tropical diseases. As you can see, these are diseases which are common in third world countries or the developing countries. They are not prevalent in the developed countries because of the advancements with regard to science and technology, which has resulted in proper healthcare systems, hygiene, cleanliness and several other things. But these diseases continues to affect the population living in developing countries. Now, let us see what are the causes of this negligence. Let us start with expensive endeavor. The entire procedure of developing a medicinal drug is complicated and characterized by low success rates. these neglected diseases, which mostly impact impoverished populations of developing nations, do not attract significant financial investment from the pharmaceutical sector. The lack of profitability associated with the treatment and prevention of neglected tropical illness renders patents and profit irrelevant in terms of promoting innovation. As you may be aware, pharmaceutical innovation requires huge investment. So, when private businesses are engaged in pharmaceutical research and development, their entire business model is dependent upon the profit that they can make. In such a model, if there is lack of profitability associated with a particular disease condition, then the pharma industry may not be willing to invest in the R&D. This has resulted to the lead of lack of proper investment for R&D in neglected diseases. It also involves high risk. The pharmaceutical businesses perceives research and development as exceedingly precarious. Consequently, there is lack of investment in the field of neglected tropical diseases, as the development of novel chemical products is frequently accompanied by high costs. Thus, pharmaceutical R&D predominantly produces slight modifications of current drugs, resulting in new medications that offer little improvement over established clinical measures in order to play safe. As pharmaceutical research involves huge investment and less outcome, the industry involved in pharmaceutical research is careful only to invest in areas where there is possibility of making profit. If there is less chance of success in a particular field to address a particular disease condition, then the industry will not be willing to invest in such areas. Complex procedure of pharmaceutical R&D is another concern. Pharmaceutical research consists of several stages. The two important stages are preclinical stage and the clinical stage. During the preclinical stage, researchers examine possible drug candidates and examine their viability. The drug candidates that meet the criteria at this stage will proceed to clinical stage, when they will undergo testing on human subjects. As pharmaceutical research and development has several stages and is a complex process, there needs to be public-private participation in these kinds of sectors to address the challenges associated with public health. Concerns of the developed nations. Medical innovation has been driven by prevalence of diseases in developed countries, as the affected population or their governments possess the financial means to afford health care. Given the majority of the impacted population resides in impoverished nations within the developing world, their governments lack the capacity to create or finance sufficient treatment programs. There are also problems or issues which are associated with the intellectual property based model of pharmaceutical innovation. The primary function of intellectual property model in the pharmaceutical sector is to stimulate innovation by offering incentives. The IPR paradigm prioritizes the financial interest of the pharmaceutical industry over the global public health necessities. It hinders the promotion of novel pharmaceuticals for neglected diseases, as it prioritizes market requirements over societal necessities. So, in the IP based pharmaceutical innovation model, the decisions on investment or drug development is constrained by market choices. So, depending upon the market, the industry will decide whether to invest in pharmaceutical research and development. This hinders the promotion of novel pharmaceutical which are possible cures for neglected diseases. The primary issue with the intellectual property model is that the motivation for innovation is directly tied to the ability to have exclusive rights in market and set prices for the drugs. The entire business relies on providing temporary market monopoly, enabling the industry to set high prices and generate profit. The neglected diseases thus burdens the developing countries which are less economically profitable. Reliance on multinationals is another concern associated with neglected diseases. The pharmaceutical research which aims to meet the healthcare requirements include universities, research institutes, clinical research conducted in hospitals and drug discovery and development within the pharmaceutical business. However, the economic justifications for maintaining a patent based system to encourage innovation are frequently focused on facts that are restricted to pharmaceutical industry. Now, let us see what are the potential solutions. Let us start with orphan drug schemes. Orphan drug schemes are an alternative strategy that seeks to promote the discovery of medications to cure diseases that impact a relatively small number of individuals. The policy grants prolonged period of exclusive commercial rights to medications that are developed specifically for orphan illness. The pharmaceutical companies can recover their investment via medicine pricing even if the expected number of people in the target market is smaller than initially predicted. The execution of the United States Orphan Medications Act of 1983 has resulted in manifold increase in the rate of development of orphan medications. The pharmaceutical industry views this strategy as exceedingly effective and actively support its extension to even neglected diseases. So, the motivational factor for the pharmaceutical industry is the extended period of market exclusivity and the ability to set prices at a higher level. So, this will work only in cases where the patients or the governments has the capacity to pay. This would lead to elevated drug prices, rendering them less accessible to the disadvantaged population. It could potentially lead to significant price hikes compared to prior cost of identical goods. Orphan drug schemes operate under the assumption that the intended population has the financial means to afford the drug. However, this will not apply to neglected diseases as neither the patient nor the governments of the developing countries have the capacity to pay, and thus it will not be feasible to recover the investment through the price of the drug. Now, let us see transferable IP rights, which are another option. Transferable IP rights or TIPR is a further suggested option that encourages innovation in overlooked sectors by prolonging the market exclusivity for an unrelated product in a developed country market. This practice is heavily condemned by impeding competition and rising the cost of medication, which negatively affects the disadvantaged patients in industrialized nations. This paradigm also lacks the ability to evolve into a viable alternative model. Transferable IP rights provides that the investment done for development of a drug for neglected diseases could be recouped from the market exclusivity or additional period of market exclusivity given to another similar product in a developed country market. but this also requires consensus at the global level and changes in the international IP legal framework. Green intellectual property is proposed as another alternative to the IP based model. This proposal is a revised patent system that would redirect a portion of the funds associated with patents towards the financial pool to provide assistance to underdeveloped nations. The unique characteristic lies in locating financial resources within the existing intellectual property model. The proposal suggests establishing a trust fund, redirecting a portion of monetary flow generated from patents, including budgetary resource, taxes and premiums. The allocated funds would be utilized to do research and development endeavors pertaining to overlooked disorders. The concept significantly depends on the existing IP based pharmaceutical business for generating revenue. One significant drawback of this paradigm is the probable unintentional rise in the prices for copyrighted medications. This may lead to inaccessibility and unaffordability of novel pharmaceuticals. Now, let us see patent pools. Patent pools are sometimes suggested as an alternative approach to suggest or to support research on neglected diseases. Patent pools are established by intellectual property right holders such as firms, universities, academia, government institutes, which are willing to license their patents to a collective group subject to some specific terms and conditions. The primary goal of patent pool is to enhance the accessibility of emerging technologies by increasing the accessibility of patents and other kind of IP protected products to entities beyond the patent holders. The drug manufacturers seeking to utilize a patent can get the necessary license by either remitting a royalty fee to the consortium or consenting to the price control obligations mandated by the consortium of donors. This strategy lacks direct incentives for drug discovery research, but at the same time the patent pool platforms have potential to facilitate more access to research data, which can be used as foundational materials for future research. Open source model of R&D is proposed as another alternative to address the issue of neglected diseases. Open source refers to collection of cultural practices and a collaborative model of production that involves an ongoing peer review process. It involves a licensing model that focuses on enabling access rather than restricting it through use of property rights. The software industry has demonstrated that it is possible to establish a model where efficiency lies in effectively coordinating collective creativity and delivering tangible outcomes. Some specific elements of pharmaceutical research, such as genome sequencing, can be readily adapted to open source development methods. Similarly, software development and drug discovery has lot of similarities and dissimilarities. Simultaneously, there are numerous notable disparities in allocation and dissemination of work. The pharmaceutical business is progressively contemplating the integration of software development techniques into medication development. The advantage of open source model is that it is expected that adoption of agile methodology would be effective by increasing efficiency and delivering quality output. The open source model has also facilitated a distributed and transparent peer review process. It has ensured that new inputs are immediately reviewed, improved and accommodated into the main creation. Such an efficient peer review system will ensure quality of the final output. The cost of drug discovery are expected to reduce significantly owing to the introduction of computational methods. But however, there is a time when computational resources were also expensive. This challenge can be resolved by attracting academia and also scientists working in universities and research institutes who has access to expensive laboratory equipments. The potential of this collaborative drug discovery model is to alter the present paradigm of pharmaceutical research. But this requires collaboration between industry, academia and the governments in order to address the issues associated with global public health crisis. To conclude, the problems of neglected diseases shows that there is a need to look beyond the formal IP based pharma innovation model to address the challenges of global public health. The current crisis in research and development within the pharmaceutical industry presents an opportunity to test the feasibility of implementing alternative models for pharmaceutical research. The references of this lecture can be seen here. Thank you very much for listening to the lecture. I hope you are enjoying the course.